Are you thinking about investing in rental real estate or starting an Airbnb in Sarasota County, Florida? If so, watch this video and find out what the rental rules and restrictions are in the county, because they differ depending on where the property is located. In general, Sarasota County has a 30-day minimum rental period. People are surprised to hear that, but we do. There are exceptions to the 30-day rule, and I'm going to tell you what those exceptions are. I'm Robin Vakai, the broker owner of Beach Bay Real Estate here in Venice, Florida, and in this video, I'm going to tell you all you need to know about rental rules and restrictions in Sarasota County. Now, for the exceptions to the 30-day minimum rule, you can rent for less than 30 days on the barrier islands like Casey Key, Siesta Key, Minnesota Key. Now, there's no minimum duration, no minimum period of time that you must rent for, but, and this is a big but, the property must be zoned RMF, which is residential multifamily. So RSF, which is residential single family, or RE, residential estate, are not eligible for that exclusion from the 30-day minimum rule. So keep that in mind. Now, local municipalities throughout the county have their own rules as well. And those municipalities that are separate, they're outside of Sarasota County rules. That's the town of Longboat Key, the city of Sarasota, the city of Venice, and the city of Northport. Now, the city of Sarasota, which includes the northern end of Siesta Key, allows a 7-day minimum. However, you have to register the property with the city. Now, the city of Sarasota, as far as all their vacation rentals go, they've got to be registered, and there are fees involved. So there's an initial registration fee for each property. That's $500, which includes the initial property inspection, which I'm assuming is completed by code enforcement. There's an annual renewal, $350, and there are some other miscellaneous fees. Now, if your property gets inspected to make sure that it's in compliance with certain safety guidelines like smoke detectors and fire extinguishers, emergency exits being marked, that sort of thing, they'll come back and charge you a second reinspection fee if they have to make a trip back. The city of Sarasota also requires, and this is a really interesting one, especially for all those folks interested in Airbnb, that you have a designated responsible party who must be reachable by phone 24/7 and within an hour's drive or an hour arrival to be able to get at the property and address any issues that might come up. So that does make it very difficult for absentee owners. The only way you're going to do that is hire somebody to be boots on the ground if something goes wrong with your property. And the city also requires that the numbers, contact information for that person be posted in the property, and several other tidbits of information. So all that was for the city of Sarasota. The town of Longboat Key sticks with the county rule of 30-day minimum rentals. They also have their own registration certificate. They want you to file for a rental certificate from the town. I'm not certain what the fee is for it. They also have you do a business tax receipt, and that definitely will have a fee. Safety inspection, proof of certification must be posted in all advertising for any properties on Longboat. And then, of course, you're subject to code enforcement fines if they find out you did not register. The city of Venice also joins the county with the 30-day minimum rental rules. Now, I've had discussions with people before. Oh, no, they're a property, blah, blah, blah. I know somebody. Well, they're breaking the rule. Or they happen to be one of the few that there are only a handful, the last time I checked with the city of Venice, properties that are grandfathered in, that they were continued to be used a shorter term. But when the code was updated, the city said, Yep, those people can stay, but once the property transfers hands, they must abide by the new rules. So the 30-day minimum is going to revert back to all properties within the city of Venice. And when I tell you, the city told me there were only a handful of eligible properties. Now, for rentals of 6 months or less, the city of Venice also requires a local business tax receipt. It's negligible. It's like $20 a year or something. But it's just other paperwork that has to be filed with the city. So your property's registered. They know who is renting property out. And then, of course, if they find out that you are renting and you didn't register, well, they probably come after you, issue a code enforcement violation. The city of Northport. So the city of Northport is one of the only exceptions to this rule. They have no minimum duration, and the city of Northport takes up about 104 square miles of land in the county. So it's basically the south and eastern tip. There's no restriction on duration. They require that you have a business tax receipt that's required for anybody doing business in the city of Northport. And they also want you to file a home occupation form and pay a $100 fee. So that's basically registering your property as a rental. So now, no matter where the property is located that you want to rent out, and I just told you what all those separate rules are, everybody, if you are renting for less than 6 months, you are going to pay a tourist development tax, or you're supposed to pay it and file the appropriate paperwork. So what that is it nets out to be a 13% total tax, and that includes 6% of state sales tax with the 1% county penny tax add-on, and then the 6% tourist development tax that the county charges. So you've got 13% total tax that's charged on the entire rental bill, and that means it's charged on add-ons. So if you're charging a pet fee, a cleaning fee, a move-out fee, whatever you're charging, it's the total rental bill. The 13% tax applies to that. Now, all this information is available online. If you need more information on the tourist development tax, you can get that at the Sarasota County Tax Collector's Office and just search for tourist development tax and you'll get right there. But both of the tax forms, now the Florida Department of Revenue collects the sales tax. So you need to register in two places, the county and then the Florida Department of Revenue. And both of those tax filings are due by the 20th of the month following the month you collected rent. So if you've rented your property in January, you charge the fee and you collected, your tax filings are due by February 20th. Now, besides all the county and local government rules and regs for rental properties, you've also got to be cognizant of HOA and condo rules and restrictions. With estimates are 42 to 45% of all people living in Florida live within some homeowners association or condominium association. And with that said, they all have their own rules. And in many cases, they're much more stringent than the local rules or the county rules. So most HOAs and condos restrict rentals, require application forms, require tenant screenings, require copies of the lease agreements to be provided to the association. They may require board approval. So you really need to check the documents. I would say in Venice, it's pretty likely that you'll find newer properties requiring a 3-month rental minimum, and many require 6. There are some that allow you to rent 3 months. I just listed a property in Venice. It's in a lovely area, Willow Springs off of Venice East Boulevard, and it's got a 3-month rental minimum, but you're only allowed to rent it once a year. So you have to check all the documents before you make any decision, and you can get a copy of the governing documents. They should be recorded with the Sarasota County clerk. But check that. And condos in particular, I just want to share with you something else. So we had a big influx of corporate buyers coming in and buying up condos, and they were buying them up to turn around and rent them out. And a lot of condo associations were unhappy because the corporations would buy the property, they just stick tenants in there, and they really weren't concerned about following the rules. They just said, oh, whatever, we'll pay the fine. So as a result of that, many associations started to put on their ballot for their annual meetings to vote and require a 2-year minimum holding period. And a lot of them, especially in Venice, have done that. They don't want people coming in and saying, hey, you're a corporate owner, you're not going to abide by the rules, you don't care about our community, when other people live there as their full-time home. So that was their way of putting a stop to that. So you do need to check that. And even if you get a copy of the governing documents, make sure you check and find out if any amendments have been recorded. Because sometimes I know of several in the last few years that have taken that vote and approved it for 2-year minimum holding period. So you want to check that. Now, there's another piece to this, homestead exemption. And some people, have their main home. They declare a homestead in Florida, which gives you a tax break off your taxes. And when you declare a property as your homestead, if you decide to rent it, Florida wants to determine that, you've abandoned your homestead. But what they say is that, let me just tell you, because I want to read it to you exactly. However, such abandonment of the homestead after January 1 of any year does not affect the homestead exemption for tax purposes for that particular year unless the property is rented for more than 30 days per calendar year for 2 consecutive years. So as long as you stick within under 30 days, if it's your own residence, your homestead can remain. If you go over that, and as I had read in a news article last year, there was a woman who was shocked when she got a letter saying that she'd committed property tax fraud because unbeknownst to her, she had 1 bedroom in her property that she occupied, rented on Airbnb. And she was physically in the home the way the article explained it. And she would rent out this 1 bedroom. Well, apparently she did it more than the 30 days, or they found out about it. And they wanted to charge her back taxes, a 50% tax penalty, plus 15% interest on the amount that she would have owed. So she was a little caught off guard. But anyway, you do need to check if you're trying to rent your homesteaded property, and you don't want to get caught. And I will say that most people who buy properties, and if you're of the attitude, oh, we don't care, whatever, maybe we'll get caught, maybe we won't. I actually saw a realtor about a year ago posting on social media that they said something like, well, it only matters if somebody complains, which I couldn't believe and was appalled at. Because of course you're supposed to be following the rules, not encouraging people to break laws. But anyway, most people who do get caught because the neighbors turn them in. And for obvious reasons, nobody, I don't care where you live, I'm sure you don't want to have your neighbor's house turned into a rental property where they have 25 cars showing up on the weekend and people throwing wild bashes for, 3 full days and playing loud music and making noise. Nobody wants that. So that's why we have these restrictions in place. But you should just know there's a lot to consider. There's a lot of research that needs to be done. Check the rules and regulations in the municipality. I just gave you the 5 different pieces of what you could be expecting depending on where the property is. And then of course, HOA and condo rules if the property's within one of those associations. Again, I'm Robin Vakai. If I can help you in any way with your real estate needs in Sarasota County, please reach out, send me a text, give me a call. And if you found this information helpful, I'm going to be posting a more in-depth video on CDD fees. I have a short that was on that topic, but it's just there's too much information to fit in, under 3 minutes. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.